Good morning, everyone. We'll be getting started shortly. We hope you enjoyed the last presentation. We're just going to wait a moment to help people make the transition from the last room. Hope you had a nice break. We've got a wonderful presentation coming up with Dr. Tony Zippel on leveraging your strengths, a foundation of success, recovery, and happiness. And as I said, we're going to just give it a moment or two to let people arrive into the space. We're so glad you joined us today. Going to wait just a moment, get things started, let people make that transition. So we will be getting started momentarily. We're just letting people make that transition into the next room. We're really glad you're here. We've got the wonderful Dr. Tony Zippel, positive psychologist, with us. So we'll be getting started in just a moment. We have such a wonderful lineup of presenters today. It's really great to be here. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Michelle Zechner. I'm with the Rutgers Department of Psychiatric Rehabilitation, and I'm very excited to be introducing to you our current speaker, Dr. Tony Zippel. Dr. Zippel is a licensed psychologist who consults, teaches, and coaches in areas related to personal happiness, resilience, and organizational health. In addition to his work with Rutgers University Mental Health Technology Transfer Center, he serves as an executive in residence at the University of Louisville School of Public Health and Information Sciences. He's a senior consultant with the Bounce Coalition and a psychology professor at Eastern Kentucky University. Tony received his doctorate from Boston University and his MBA from the University of New Hampshire. He holds multiple certifications in positive psychology, happiness studies, coaching, and positive neuroplasticity. I'm really delighted to introduce to you Dr. Zippel and looking forward to hearing what he has to say about our strengths. If you have any, please interact with us through chat and we will make sure that Tony hears any of your questions that you have. Welcome, Tony.
Good to be here, Michelle. And yes, given the limitations of the Zoom webinar setup, we're still going to try to make this as interactive as we can using chat. So I'm gonna ask you to pop some things into chat, and I hope people take advantage of that. Crystal already gave us a big good morning in chat. I appreciate that. Welcome. So we're going to be talking about strengths, and I want to start out by asking you a question. So what do you notice about the experience of the following animals? What do they have in common? Okay. Pop your thoughts in chat about that. What do those animals have in common? What do you notice about their experience of the world? Oh, got a quiet group in chat. They react to negativity in some way, protection, yeah. Growing extinction, their experience will be different. They're all unique. Freedom, they all bite. Good responses. And you're really onto it. All of them have particular strengths and all of them see the world a little bit differently, from from bats who use sonar to fly through the air and catch mosquitoes in the dark and eat them, to things like a duck-billed platypus I never knew this before, but they use their bill to sense animals in the mud. You know, they dig in the mud with their bill and they sense the electrical field around their prey, and that's how they find food. All of them see the world a little bit differently. All of them have their own unique, special strengths that allow them to do well. You know, too often in the work that we do in recovery and rehabilitation and treatment, we start out with a focus on negative stuff. You know, we're focused on symptoms, on people's impairments, on stigma. And it's not that that isn't important. That matters. And certainly in the world today where we need to bill for things and document things in a particular way, we've got to pay attention to that. You know, but too often we start out with those kinds of things. And what would it be like if we were a little different than that, if we didn't define ourselves and the work that way? Strengths, which I'm going to be talking about for the balance of this, I think are more than the kinds of things we tend to talk about as strengths, you know, job strengths, daily living strengths, those kinds of things. As Michelle knows, I grew up in the Boston University Center for Psychiatric Rehabilitation world. Boy, we were very focused on strengths, you know, observable things that people did. That was what we measured. And that kind of stuff is important, right? But it's not the only thing, and maybe not the most important foundational thing, because knowledge can always be taught. Skills may be important, but you can always acquire those kinds of things. If we really want to connect with the person and work with the person, we really need to get to know that person. And character strengths, something that we don't often talk about in a strength context in rehabilitation and recovery. Character strengths are what define us when we are at our best. Our character strengths define who we want to be, you know, and I think that they're foundational to us as clinicians, as rehabilitation and recovery professionals working with a person. They are foundational to getting to know that person so that we can do great work with them. Now, I've mentioned character strengths. By character strengths, I'm really talking about personality traits, not things that are states that come and go, but sort of lasting, sticky kinds of personality traits that reflect our own individual identity. These are important things because these are foundational to producing the sorts of outcomes that we're looking for. When we talk about driving outcomes, a lot of that is pushed by personality traits, right? And our personality traits are really important to the way that we contribute to the world, the way that we engage with other people and engage with the world around us. So that's what I mean by character strengths. You can think about them as personality traits. We all have personality traits. Some of you may be the kind of people who are very precise. You know, you want to make sure you dot the I's and cross the T's, that you have contingency plans. You never want to make a mistake. And others of you may be people who are like, well, you know, let's go. We'll figure it out on the way. You know, some of you may be more, let me talk things through. Some of you are more analytical. Let me think things through. We all have these kinds of traits that define us, that reflect our identity, and which are foundational to the way that we approach the world, engage with the world, and engage with treatment or rehabilitation or recovery. Now, the character strengths that are strongest in our makeup, you know, I'll talk about those as signature character strengths. You know, these are really our superpowers. The things that are most prominent in our makeup are the things that when we use them, when we lean on them, we're more confident and competent. You know, we learn faster, we're more creative, we're more engaged, we feel less stressed, we're happier and more resilient. And as Michelle knows, I'm big on happiness. I think that being happier is a goal in and of itself. And I know that when we are happier, all kinds of other things tend to go more easily. Some of you may know we've got a practice manual on increasing happiness coming out soon through Rutgers Mental Health Technology Transfer Center. So you can watch for that. But we're happier and more resilient and do better when we have a chance to take those parts of us that are really core, that really define us, and lean on those and leverage those in the world. They're really central to any treatment, rehabilitation, and recovery process. You know, these character strengths, these signature strengths are our built-in capacities, our individual way of being in the world. And they're important because they set the ceiling for what we can achieve. You know, when we focus on deficits, you know, we may need to fix deficits if you want to be a neurosurgeon, you know, you've got to have certain skills. And if you don't have the core basic foundational skills, you can't be a neurosurgeon. But those only set the floor. It's really our strengths that set us apart and help to lift us past that floor. So we've got to fix deficits, but strengths are what really carry us to bigger levels of success. So it's easier to be really productive and engaged when we focus on those kinds of things and when we maximize our potential by maximizing our ability to use those strengths, we're going to have higher levels of success. So let me summarize what I've said so far. My own belief is that if character strengths, our personality traits are kind of hard to change. They're relatively fixed. They don't change quickly. And if these character strengths shape our worldview and define who we are at our best, and if we feel better and more engaged when we're going to use those strengths and we move naturally towards using those strengths, you know, when we're faced with a challenge or a problem, those are the things we lean on most. If those four things are true, then a primary part of what we need to do in our work is to help our clients identify what their strongest character strengths are, their signature strengths, and work with them to find ways that they can use those strengths to succeed. Instead of just focusing on fixing deficits, on fixing impairments and symptoms and dealing with stigma, and we help people to identify who they are at their best. Those signature strengths and use them to move beyond those issues of symptom and impairment and disability. So, understanding and leveraging those character strengths helps the work that we do. At the very least, we know that when we focus on those kinds of things, it shows respect for our clients. It really helps us to know our client. It strengthens our sense of hope and their sense of hope. And it really engages people. I mean, think about what it's like in your own life the last time that somebody really got you, really understood you. When you think about that, you're probably not thinking, oh, you know, the last time somebody really understood me, they understood my ability to do motivational interviewing, or my skill at budgeting, or my time management processes. That doesn't show that they really got you. The last time that somebody really understood you, they understood your need and desire and core makeup. They understood how courage helped to drive you, how you had a strong sense of justice and fairness, how your connection to other people mattered, your level of spirituality, your zest for life, your love for learning. Those things communicate that we really understand someone and we can identify those and connect with people with those. It shows respect for them, it engages them in treatment. So it helps us in our work. We also know that when we leverage those things, it does great things for clients. You know, one of the studies I saw that I thought was fascinating, this is not just around people with disability, but broadly speaking, workers who are able to use four or more of their core character strengths, their signature strengths at work, have better work experience, see their work as a calling rather than a chore, tend to stick around longer and have better retention, and they are more productive. So think about what that means for working with our clients. If you're working with your client around doing well in the world and you can help them to use their core character strengths, and they're going to stick with it longer. They're going to be more productive. They're going to be more engaged. They're going to see what they're doing as a calling rather than a chore. Well, what does that do for your ability to be helpful to them? And you can even think about that in your own life because there's real parallel process that goes on with this. As important as character strengths are and signature strengths are to our clients, they are just as important to us as well. If you use your character strengths at work, your signature strength, you're more likely to see your work as a calling, to stick around longer, to be more productive, and frankly, to have more fun and be happier at work, right? So identifying our signature strengths makes a difference. Question is, how do we do that? So let me ask you another question. Who knows who that is? Anyone recognize that person? How about this? No one knows who that is either. Oh, come on. Hey, Moneyball, right. We've got a couple of people calling out Moneyball. Brenda, good for you. And Moneyball was a wonderful book and a wonderful story about Billy Beane and the Oakland A's. And the Oakland A's didn't have much money, relatively speaking, and they were always losing. And what they did is they figured out a way to identify better data about who they brought in and how they used them. And by leveraging people data, they were able to move from being kind of at the bottom of professional baseball to really being a contender in spite of the fact that they had some significant limitations like cash. A lot like the work that we do, we work with clients who have lots of limitations. How do we help them to really rise up and be pros? We do it by identifying and leveraging their signature strengths, their great skills. The power of using people data, not just impressions, helps us to predict how people are going to be and to support them in playing their best game. And so, if we can identify in a consistent way people data that identifies character strengths, we're going to go a long way towards doing that. Now, there are a lot of assessments out there. Last time I looked, I think there were something like 800 personality assessments for trying to identify characteristics of people that might be useful. I want to share with you my favorite. My favorite is the VIA Character Survey. And the VIA Character Survey, I think, has a lot of advantages over many of the things that we've looked at before. The VIA Character Survey it was a project, a research project that was funded by the Meyerson Foundation in Cincinnati. The goal of it originally was, can you identify the character traits, the virtues that help adolescents to succeed in the world? That was the challenge. And they brought in Chris Peterson and Marty Seligman from University of Pennsylvania, kind of positive psychology research, and they organized a team of 55 social scientists and philosophers and other people from around the world. And for 3 years, they worked at developing a way to identify core character strengths. And out of that came the VIA. It's 240 items. Like almost all of these things, it's self-report, takes 15, 20 minutes to do, although there's no time limit for doing. And what it does is it gives you 24 strengths in rank order. And all of us have all 24 of these strengths, but it gives you from your strongest to your weakest of those 24 strengths. Now, one of the reasons I really like this in doing the work that we do with it in our own world is that it doesn't cost anything. If you want to, you can spend 15 or $20 and buy a really detailed report, but you can do the base assessment at no cost. Just log on to the website. I'll show you the link in a minute, and you can do it at no cost. There's a lot of collateral material available for it. You know, it's practical and understandable and usable. Lots of tools out there that you can access at no cost for doing it. It's psychometrically pretty good, as good as most things out there, frankly, better than most things out there. Strong reliability, internal consistency is very good. There's an adult version. If you work with young people, and I see that there's a kids track in this conference today, there's an adolescent version for ages 13 to 17. So it's a really wonderful tool to use, and I use it a lot. What it gives you are 24 different strengths organized as 6 virtues. So the 6 virtues are wisdom, courage, humanity, justice, temperance, and transcendence. And if we know how people are in terms of those virtues, we know their strength in wisdom, or we know their strength in justice, we know a lot about that person. If those break down into specific strengths underneath them, so under the virtue of wisdom, we have strengths like creativity, judgment, perspective. Under the strengths of temperance, we have things like forgiveness or humility or self-regulation, and transcendence, which is one of those things that's kind of a funny word that not everybody gets. But when you think about the strengths of transcendence, how do we feel like we're part of something bigger than we are? How do we have a sense of being part of something vast and mysterious? We have things like hope, like gratitude, like spirituality, appreciation for beauty and excellence. So think for a minute, if you would, about your own life looking at these strengths. What are one or two of these character strengths that really seem to resonate in your own life? Which are a couple of them that define you? Who wants to pop some examples of that in there? I'm going to share mine in just a minute. Now, by the way, if you want, the slides will all be available from the conference. I'm going to send a PDF of the whole slide deck, so you can have the whole thing if you want. And in between the time now that it's posted, yeah, thanks, Michelle, for posting that. You can take the assessment, all good. Love of learning from Cole, curiosity, love of learning, forgiveness, kindness, perseverance. You know, it's not hard for us. Humility, kindness. It's not hard for us when we think about what our strengths are, to think of the things that really define us, to think of those things that when we exercise those strengths, we're really at our best. When we think of people around us who look at us and value us and say, you know, Michelle, you are a wonderful person. I'm so happy to have you in my life. These are the kinds of things that they think about when they think about you, right? Um, I told you I'd share my own profile with you, so I'm going to share my signature strengths, and I'm going to share the areas that are weakest for me. You know, I still have all 24 strengths, but the top 5, those are my signature strengths. Those are when I'm doing that stuff, man, I am in the groove, I am at my best. The ones at the bottom, I still have, but they're weaker. I don't go to those first. So what I want to do is show you mine, and then I'd love to ask you, what do you think it says about me? So my own profile, my signature strengths: love of learning, judgment, fairness, curiosity, perspective, all of those strengths around wisdom kind of as a virtue. You know, those are my signature strengths. They're right at the top of my list of 24. The ones at the bottom of my list: spirituality, self-regulation, gratitude, perseverance, and zest. So if you knew those things about me, because when we sat down and did work together, you said, you know, I want to get to know you better. I want to figure out your signature strengths so that we can work together for leverage those. What would you know about me by looking at that, by having a conversation with me about my signature strengths? What does it tell you? Who am I? And how would you want to work with me? Appeal to my intellect. Brenda, yeah, absolutely right. Give me something that I can figure out and I'm going to tend to do better. What else? An analytical mind, scientifically driven. Yeah, I lead with my head, not with my heart. And when you think about the strengths that are lowest for me, what does that say to you in combination? That I could work on transcendence, right? I'm a subject matter expert, but maybe my work on transcendence could be better. That's absolutely right. I would say this, Chelsea, that because my things around transcendence are lower, if I'm going to be at my best, if I can find a way to leverage things like love of learning and curiosity, I will do better. I will do better if I can find ways to solve a problem using those than to dig in and try to solve the problem using self-regulation and perseverance. But you are absolutely right that some things require a level of self-regulation and perseverance. And if I'm not at a reasonable level for it, I'm going to be in trouble. So it tells you some things about areas that I may have challenge, but it tells you how I can use my strengths or what strengths I have to help solve those kinds of things. So self-regulation is a problem. I'm not as good about perseverance and following through on details. Maybe you could work with me around my sense of fairness, my sense of judgment about how I need to get along in the world to succeed, my perspective about following details versus ignoring them, and use those strengths to help me compensate for areas that I'm weaker in. Because I'm really not good at things like perseverance and self-regulation. I mean, I can do it. My dissertation was 500 pages long. It was original research. It went on forever. Took me 2 years to do it. I can do it if I need it, but that's not me at my best. And what kept me going during that was I could lean into my love of learning and my sense of curiosity about it to carry me and help me do those kinds of things. So that's how you might use those. And think about what that would have if you work with your clients, knowing those kinds of things. Think about how that would help you to work with every one of your clients. You would know where you could connect with them, where you could help them to lean on who they are at their core to move ahead. What are the things that are going to come most easily for them that are going to help them to lift their boats, to engage in the world, to engage with you, to engage with treatment, to work on their goals. I'm not going to want to work on my goals just out of a sense of zest. I'm going to want to work on my goals because it engages me intellectually. Right? So this gives you a base for working with me as a client and for working with your own clients. So I want to encourage you to think about ways to use this. So we know that if we can observe and practice these character strengths, that it improves outcomes in the work that we do with people. If we can learn about our own or help our clients learn about their own superpowers, their signature strengths, that then the importance of those strengths in their lives and what they do in their lives and how those lives that can be helpful in their lives in making progress, how they can use those strengths to do a better job with you and with the world in general, it's going to improve outcomes. So I want to play a game with you for a minute. Okay. So we're going to play bingo. And I know that some of you have been around the social service world, and bingo always seems to be popular in certain circles. We're going to play strengths spotting bingo. Okay. So you can just take a look at the card. All this card is the 24 via strengths organized by virtue. And you'll remember some of these, but you don't even know and have to know and remember this. If you want to take a screenshot of it and refer to it, that you can. But here's what I want you to do. I'm going to show you a short video, it's about 3 minutes long. And what I want you to do is see how many character strengths, signature strengths you identify in this video. And when you see a character strength, pop it into chat. So look for character strengths in the video and pop it into chat as it comes along. That makes sense for everybody? Okay, here we go. There's probably going to be about 4 seconds of sales stuff in the beginning of this because it's a YouTube video. I always use YouTube videos in this so I can avoid any kind of issue with ownership and copyright.
Y'all ready? Never let go. Never let go. Never let go.
All right, so here's the video. And by the way, it's in Chinese, but it's subtitled, so don't worry about it.
人为什么活着？活下去，为了活更长，是为了离开。去鸡巴那个了！80岁，不中听，一个得了癌症，3个有心脏病，每一个都有退化性关节炎。听39公分，到白天只是一个简单的运动。
So I've got lots of strengths that you've been listening here: teamwork, perseverance, lots of perseverance and resilience and determination, courage, bravery, persistence. Someone pointed out their humor, because there is a little humor in this. Appreciation of beauty and excellence, perspective, love, joy, gratitude. There's some spirituality in this as well. You know, it starts with a celebration of a friend of theirs who had died, and this sense that time is limited. Yeah, thank you, Tenny. Spirituality. So it's really easy when we see these things around us, right? You can think about this in and what made this ride possible for them as an analog for the work that we do with our clients. Was it their riding skills? Well, yeah, they need to know how to ride a motorcycle, but it's not their riding skills that determine their success with this. It wasn't their physical training. They had to do some training for it and get ready for it, but that wasn't it. It wasn't the equipment that they had. Had to have a motorcycle, but that was relatively easy to deal with. It was their character strengths that defined their ability to succeed with this, that engaged them in the process, that pulled them through it, that made it a joy for them as opposed to just a chore, right? That's the challenge that we have in the work that we do with our clients. Can we lean more on character strengths as something that pulls our clients in and supports them in the work that they do? Can we do that in our own lives or with our peers? Or if you're a supervisor and supervising your staff, can you lean on their character strengths to help them along and help them to be at their best as opposed to just getting along on the project? So uh, 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 that's what the core of this whole conversation about character strengths and signature strengths is all about. If we build more of this into our work, it carries us, right? And so the challenge that I want to give you today is to make the most of your own superpowers, because that's always the starting place for this. I mentioned that I'm big on these kinds of things as parallel process. I don't think there's anything in this regard that we do with our clients that we shouldn't be doing in our own lives, or we shouldn't be doing in our relationships with other people in our personal lives. All the same stuff. And so the thing that I want to challenge you with is, can you assess and identify your own signature strengths? If I asked you, what are your top 3 or 4 or 5 character strengths? Those things that really define you and help you to get through the world and do great work. What would you say? Are you aware of those kinds of things? So how do you step back and identify your own strengths? You can do things like, pick one of those strengths to work on every day. I'm a big believer in the value of a morning routine. My own morning routine starts with coffee and takes me about 20 minutes to get through a little bit of mindfulness and a little bit of review of what I need to do that day, and setting in a very intentional way how I'm going to do something that I use some of my signature strengths for. It gives me something to look forward to, and it sets my intention to be at my best for at least part of the day. I'm not at my best for the whole day, every day. That's clearly not true. But if you can use your signature strengths more over the course of the day rather than less, you will do better. You can also work on your signature strengths by practicing that kind of strength spotting. As you're binging on Netflix sometime, see if you can identify the signature strengths in some of those characters. As you're sitting around the table with other people having dinner, a holiday dinner with the relatives, see if you can identify the strengths of people around you. What are their character strengths? And see if you can diversify the way that you use your strengths, the situations in which you use them. How do you get the most out of your strengths, whether it's spirituality or gratitude, whether it's optimism, whether it's love of learning? It doesn't matter. How can you get the most out of that in the situations that you face during the day? The great thing about all of this is you can start doing this today, right? Doesn't cost you anything. You can go take the VIA character survey at lunch today, or when you get home today, or tomorrow. You can give it to your clients, doesn't cost anything. You can have your friends and relatives do it. Next time you're sitting around with the family, make sure that they've all done a VIA character survey. Have them bring their results and talk about it over dinner, right? Use it as a common language for how you can engage with each other and support each other for being at your best or their best. So discover it, be more like Billy Bean and generate some real consistent data about yourself and your clients. Okay. Decide how you're going to use your superpowers more on the job. How can you do better at your job by leveraging your strengths? You may need to do some things around compensating for the areas that are weaker, but you're going to do better in the world by leveraging your strengths. One of the things that we've discovered, and I noticed a couple of people popped in the chat things about social intelligence, and I'm a big believer in the value of emotional intelligence. One of the things we've learned about that is that you need a certain level of cognitive intelligence to succeed with a task. If you're going to be an accountant, it's going to be really hard to be an accountant if you have an IQ score of 65, right? You need to have an IQ score that's good enough to be an accountant, but being twice as smart doesn't make you twice as good an accountant. Having higher levels of these kinds of character strengths are the things that make you really superior in the job that you choose. So find ways to use it more on the job. Use the VIA in your assessments and consider how you can do this with friends and relatives. If you go to the VIA character website and you'll find that easily. I shared the link. It'll be in the materials. It's in chat. Michelle posted it. You'll find a lot of really good tools that you can use in your own life. You can use in working with clients. You can use in working with family members, and you can use certainly in your day-to-day work. This is one of my favorites, tips on using a new character strength in a new way, right? And it's just suggestions to get you going. So if you've got a character strength of something like honesty, write a poem that is an expression of an inner truth for you. Really push that sense of honesty that you have in a new way. Or kindness. Put coins in someone's parking meter that's run out of money, right? Small things that you can do. So it gives you some just tips. And what you'll find is that as you practice these things more, you're going to do more of it. Somebody that I've worked with a lot, Tal Ben Shahar, on issues of happiness, likes to say, when we appreciate the good appreciates. And it's because when we do things more, it builds a habit, and the stronger our habit is, the more of it seems to happen. So by using these kinds of tips and practicing your strengths in new ways and in new situations, you build the neural pathways for using those strengths, and you can use them even better going forward. Here's another one that I like. You can pick a superpower and work on it for a whole week. So if your superpower is perspective, what would it be like if you made a conscious effort to offer good advice in appropriate settings for the week in a conscious kind of way? How would that strengthen your superpower of perspective? Or if you had a signature strength of something like prudence, thinking before you act or speak, taking a breath first and then doing it, and consciously focusing on strengthening that signature strength for you. What would that do in your own life if you spent a whole week doing that? So that's another really useful tool. And again, you can do that in your own life. You can do that with clients as well. There are forms in it like, 3 good things, think back on the last period of time and look at it against the VIA and think about times when you've used signature strengths. Or something that I like to use, you can journal to questions like, what's one of your superpowers, your signature strengths? Where is that most important in your life? How are you going to use that more often? And how can you observe and appreciate and support the use of that or other superpowers in other people? And just, at the end of the day, spend 5 minutes thinking about that. These are the kinds of things that you can do that really help you to lean into those kinds of signature strengths, the things that make you special, the way that you are at your best, And if you work with your clients around that, you're going to find that you begin to think about your clients as people at their best. You're going to help them identify when they are at their best. You're going to help them figure out how they can use themselves at their best in order to achieve goals, in order to be more successful. So I'm going to stop, and we've got like 5 minutes left or something like that. We can do some Q&A at the end of it, at the end of the deck, and feel free to jot this down. My contact information. Always happy to talk with people about this. If you are doing this and it catches on for you and you say, I want more resources around this, or it's triggered thinking about something else, how does this connect with another area that I'm interested in pursuing, tag me. Happy to set up time to talk with you. We can Zoom or swap emails about it. If I can be helpful to you in the work that you're doing in any way, always happy to do that. And most importantly, for the purposes of this talk, if I can help you to lean into your own signature strengths and be at your very best in the work that you do, happy, engaged, productive, resilient, effective in the work that you do, and helping your clients to be happy, engaged, resilient, productive, happy, I'll be happy to do that with you. So let me stop with that, and let's see if there are questions, things we want to pursue a little bit in the last few minutes that we have together.
Thank you so much, Tony. I always feel like I learn so much when I work with you and hear you speak. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat. One question that popped up for me is, if we think we're weak in a certain strength, or we score low on the VIA character strength, does that mean that we don't necessarily have that strength? How should we think about those areas where we feel like we're not as strong?
That's a great question. I think I mentioned, but probably didn't stress it enough. All of us have all 24 of those strengths. I mean, even my lowest strengths around things like spirituality and zest, I have those strengths. It's just not the place that I go first. It's not who I am probably at my very best. So I can still leverage those. They're still there for me, but they're not at the top of the list. Those aren't my superpowers. When you think about superheroes like Spider-Man, he's got some particular super strengths. There are other things he can do as well, but those are probably not his superpowers. We think about Spider-Man being able to climb walls and shoot webs. We don't think about Spider-Man being able to stick to a problem, right? He can, and we've seen him do it, but those aren't his superpowers. That makes sense?
That's really helpful, Tony. Yeah, that we're this kaleidoscope of different abilities, and sometimes up, and there we see
Ah,
there we see Marley, Tony's dog.
sorry, we lost my contact information. Yeah, that is Ziggy. Michelle wanted me to
Sorry,
mention,
Ziggy.
I do a lot of training around positive psychology and happiness, and something I have coming up in October locally is a day-long session on dogs and happiness. How our relationship with our dogs increases our level of happiness using a combination of, the experience of people in the room as well as the research and science around it.
And we have a question, where can you find the resources that you mentioned? Let me, you will be able to get the PowerPoint, and I will drop the VIA Institute on Character website. That's really a great website. I encourage you to check it out. Whether you're working with young people, adults, they've got some great resources.
Lots of things at that website. And if you Google VIA Character Survey, you will be surprised, or maybe not, at the number of hits you get. There is a lot of collateral material that's been developed around this. And VIA is used extensively in coaching, for example, and increasingly in positive psychology and related kinds of topics. Screenshot of my personal information. Let me go back to
And Tony, I just dropped it in the chat as well for
Oh,
anyone who
great.
is would like that. Thank you so much. Wow.
Great.
I am also putting in the chat. We would love to hear your thoughts about the session. So we kindly ask if you could take a moment to complete the survey in the chat. It should just take 2 or 3 minutes of your time. Thank you, Tony, very, very much for your incredible session. I feel like I want to focus on my strengths. I hope that all of you feel like you want to focus on your strengths as well. And I do want to just point out that we will be starting again at 11:25, and there are 3 or 4 concurrent sessions. So you'll exit this session and you'll go back to the conference website and you'll select the session that you would like to attend.
Yeah, I just see a couple of things in chat. I'm not seeing information in chat. You can either tag Michelle. I know you know how to get a hold of her, or my own email is easy. It's just Zipple for Anthony Zipple, AZIPPLE at Gmail. So you can always tag me there.
I apologize. I've just figured it out. My strength is multitasking, but it's falling off the falling off the board there. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Thank you everyone so much for attending. Thank you, Dr. Zippel, for sharing your strengths with us. This has been a really enlightening session. So thank you very much, everyone.
Pleasure to see everyone. Thanks. Enjoy the rest of the conference.
Okay, I think we can end the session. Thank you very much.